All right, peoples, good afternoon. I'm excited. Beginning first, thanking God for the greatest of honors and merits of building a mikveh. It goes without saying that Jewish life is contingent of us, we, the community, having a kosher mikveh. And the making of the mikveh over the years became relatively easier and easier. Technology is very helpful. The sharing of other people's experiences, which happens in our world, is extraordinary. The amount of institutions and people that came and offered little, which is not that little, pieces of advice, halachically, technically, hygienically, is gewaldig. And we are very grateful to all of them. Shout out to Aria Nayeli for the nice light refreshments that we have served right now. And let me share a basic overview of the two options that we have to create a kosher mikvah, and the option that we are using right now, the challenge, and the way we're doing it. The Torah writes that we are able to go from a state of ritual impurity. These are words that we are familiar with. Perhaps we don't understand it properly, but let's not focus on the words, but just to know we are in flux. We meaning we people. We sometimes are in a state of purity, and sometimes we are in a state of impurity or impurity. Tahara Tuma. Tuma does not connote anything bad. It's actually part of nature, both for men and for women, that simply, naturally, we go into states of impurity, and then we have the ability of going out of the state of Tuma and to enter into the state of purity. One way would be by submerging oneself in a spring water, in spring waters, known as a mayon. If that is the option available, which used to be very common until today, if people live in a city or in a village near a stream of water, as it used to be, then the women and the men, I know it wasn't warm, and sometimes winter it was very cold, but they would go into the river. They would go into a stream of water, and the making of such a mikveh is basically a non-brainer. It's a natural spring. I'm sure that they put partitions to afford some more privacy under those circumstances. There were even different techniques that people used to bring warmth into a relatively isolated part of these gatherings of water. How effective was it? It's all relative. Instead of going into waters that are, 20 degrees or 30 degrees, freezing waters, if they brought it up to 60, which for us would have been already something beyond our abilities, it helped. And the disadvantage or the challenge with the spring water is that you cannot create a spring water. Either you have it or you don't. It does happen to be that there are spring waters under our property. But for reasons that I would not get into right now, primarily financial reasons, the type of costs of digging in all the way there and accessing this water, it doesn't make sense. When there is the second option, which is equally as kosher as the spring water, the more common a way of getting from the state of impurity to purity, and that is by going into a mikvah. The word mikvah means a gathering of rain waters. Now, by rabbinic law, perhaps by biblical law, if the rain waters were prior to ending up in the mikvah, as we'll see, into the actual, the word that we use in Hebrew is the boir. I'm an Ashkenazi, I'm pronouncing it boir. You can pronounce it bor. That's a beis and a vav with a cholam and a reish, which simply means a hole, a cavity in the ground. if the rainwaters, prior to making their ways into this boir, or what we call mikvah, if they were gathered in a halachic utensil, in a bucket, in a pipe that has a right angle, or in any other utensil that's not connected to the ground, then these waters are called mayim she'uvim, gathered waters. Mayim she'uvim are not kosher to be used for mikvah. Now, 1 second. All of the waters that come out of our tap are halachically mayim she'uvim. Make no mistake, the mikvah waters will be changed very often because of the technology that we have right now, and we have all these types of filters that are gavaldic. The mikvah, God willing, is going to be spotless. That's the highest priority. There is no need as there used to be. It used to be they would clean the waters every day. Now it's just as clean without actually exchanging the waters. But having said that, we will exchange the waters a lot. And we are constantly putting in city water. That's mayim she'uvim. So there has to be a whole spiel, there has to be a whole structure in place, which is fascinating, which will make sure that even though you're entering, whether it is the women's mikvah or the men's mikvah, you are entering into waters that came out of a faucet. Prior to that, and under the mikvah, and on the sides of the mikvah, I'm going to begin now speaking about the ladies' mikvah, aside of the actual boir that the women will be using, there are 3 other adjacent boiras, 3, all of them have in them exclusive rainwater. And on top of that, there is a water reservoir of only rainwater. So if once in 10 or in 20 years, even though you don't have to change the waters in the 3 that I'll show to you people in a moment, if we would want to do that, then we already have rainwaters ready. We clean everything out and we make it perfectly dry. That's very important, like perfectly dry, and we do the process all over again. So it begins with the rain. The rain is falling on the roof. We happen to have a very large roof. We have here a couple of roofs, but we, for halachic reasons, will only be using the roof on top of the building of the mikvah. For people that are actually here, the front part of the property has a 4,300 square foot rooftop, open rooftop. We will not be using the waters from there. If we want, we could, but we don't need to. The rooftop that's on top of the men's and the women's mikvah, the open rooftop, is 2,500 square feet. And that is sufficient, even with the LA rains, that if God will bless us and there'll be even just a little bit of the types of rains, a little bit that we had in this season, we're going to have sufficient waters to fill up all of the mikvahs and to fill up the water reservoir. Okay, now, number 1, we don't want for the waters, when they hit the roof, for them to touch anything that halachically could become impure. A higher level of stringency, what I'm saying now is not a prerequisite, but it's something that we were able to achieve because we're building it, is that we prefer that from when the rainwaters hit the roof until when they make their ways to, you'll see, into the proper boir or into the borot, boirois in my Ashkenazic Yiddish, we don't want it to touch metal. Even if the metal is part of the building. I want to make it clear, there are many mikvahs that have roofs that have a lot of metal on it, and there is no halachic issue. There are many things that we are doing that's going beyond the letter of the law. It happens to be by divine providence that we're gathered before Pesach. We all have this culture, which is correct, that on one hand, have a good balance. Don't go beyond. For Pesach, people allow themselves to be very stringent. That exact attitude is the attitude that we have when it comes to the building of the mikvah. There are so many things that we do that are, by the letter of the law, not necessary, but since there is one opinion that frowned upon this, that, or the other, and I'll give you one example, we invest money, we build buildings to make sure that everyone will consider the mikvah to be a kosher mikvah. Okay, so first of all, the little metal that we do have on the roof is being covered properly, you'll see that, and the roof was built in a type of incline that when it rains, all of the waters will make their ways into 2 drains. One drain will go into the ladies' mikvah, and one drain will go into the men's mikvah, even though they're very close to each other on different stories. The men's mikvah is on the second story. The woman's mikvah is on the ground floor story. There are certain parts that will be shared. Water reservoir parts. Beautiful. This is the only mikvah in the West Coast that's on the second story. There isn't another mikvah. And it was done with a lot of chachma, not our wisdom, shared wisdom of many people that had practical and halachic knowledge. So we have something really unique. But I want to speak about the uniqueness of it being top of the standard according to any halachic opinion. So there's no metal. The pipes, many people, just another thing, we don't want the water to touch anything that could become halachically impure. Just as an example, rubber, there is a debate in halacha whether rubber is a material that could become impure or not. So nowadays, we're not unique, but many older mikvahs might have rubber pipes. We don't have any rubber pipes. Right? It's either just cement, and if we have a pipe, we'll have a plastic pipe, which according to all opinions is not a material that's even susceptible to becoming impure. But there are two issues. Water should not touch something that's susceptible to becoming impure. There'll be no furniture on the roof. There'll be nothing on the roof until when the mikvahs are full. But then there's another issue. We don't want to gather the waters. It's going through a pipe. If there would be a right angle in the pipe, even though the pipe is opened in one end, the pipe is opened in the other end, the law of gravity will never allow the waters to stop. The waters will flow through it. We still will not use such a pipe. So we have a straight pipe. Either the straight pipe will go directly where it needs to go, and if it doesn't go exactly where it needs to go, as I'll show you, what they do is, what we did already is that inside pipe A, we make a hole, and we insert pipe B like this. So it's not one pipe that has a right angle. It's a one pipe that goes straight. This pipe in itself is only a straight line pipe, and that's the way you get the waters from here to a little bit of an angle, as you'll see here in the mikvah. Now, when the water will gather here, the water is going to gather. I want to begin with the ladies' mikvah. The ladies' mikvah, we put a lot more into the ladies' mikvah because halachically you have to. The men's mikvah is beyond what it needs to be, but it doesn't come near to what we did for the ladies' mikvah. The first place where the water will land is in a water reservoir. That's not near the mikvah. It's near the mikvah, but it's not connected to the mikvah. That's a huge gathering of water. If I'm not mistaken, I think we have 5,000 liter capacity. And I just want to share with everyone words that you might have heard. There is a minimum amount of rainwaters that are not gathered that have to be part of a mikvah. And in the Mishnah, the words are 40 sa'ah. Sa'ah is a measurement that we had in the times of old. There is a big debate how to translate that in current measurements. Many different opinions. When it comes to a mikvah, we always go by the most stringent opinion. I'm going to speak about liters. Even though we can speak about gallons, you can say, liters. The most chomer opinion is that 40 saw 700 liters. Every water reservoir here, the smallest one will have 1,000 liters. Again, this is something that was not done in the earlier generations, but people really want to go beyond. Many people in building know that when you build a cavity in the ground, there will be, for various reasons, times where it's not exactly as you wanted it to be. So when you aim for 1,000, even though we have more, but it also gives us the leeway that in case we're not going to go with 700, even though, by the way, 700 is more than you need. But we begin with the most chomer 700. We're going to have either a water reservoir near the mikvah of 1,000 liters. There's going to be one of 1,500 liters. I'll tell you how we got to the 1,500. And there'll be one that has 2,000 liters. These are the ones near the ladies' mikvah. The water reservoir is one step beyond that. You'll see that. I know it might be hard to put it in your mind. So the water goes into a water reservoir. It has, I think, 5,000 square liter capacity. And from there, we get, with a manual lever that's not there yet, we get to control where it flows. And let me just verbalize where it will flow to. It's going to flow, first of all, it's going to flow on a ground for a couple of inches. The water, prior to entering any of the boiros flowing on the ground, remember this word is called hamshacha. Lahamshich, to draw. But this word, in the context of the laws of mikveh, means that according to almost all opinions, even if the waters would have been gathered in a bucket, which invalidates it to begin building a mikveh, if those waters are flowing over the earth, over the ground, even the cement that we used is a very light cement. It's not a dense cement, as some opinions hold, that hamshacha has to be on the ground or on a very earthy cement. Amazing. Legally, 3 handbreadths, 12 inches. As the generations went on, people say it's not enough 3 handbreadths because if the water is flowing very quickly, then it might go over, it might go too quick, it might jump, however they word it. So we have a much longer area of hamshacha. So first of all, the waters are going through a pipe. There's no gathering of waters. On top of that, when it goes out of the water reservoir, we do hamshacha. Hamshacha takes away 2 issues. It takes away the mayim she'uvim issue. Even if it was gathered, it's undone because it went on the ground, hamshacha. And if it touched something impure, it's also resolved with hamshacha. These are 2 separate issues. Hamshacha resolves both. The water there is going to go, according to our lever, into 1, 2, 3 different boidas. Number 1, boir zriya. You can write it down. The word zriya means planting. I'll explain what that means. The boir zriya is always the smallest one. The boir zriya by us is 1,000 liters. Already a few hundred more than needed, but that's the minimum. We're calling that for us the minimum. Then we're going to fill another boir, which is called boir hashaka. The word hashaka means to touch, to kiss. That one, by us, will have 2,000 liters. And it's going to have a divider in middle. There's going to be a plastic divider. So the 2,000 will become one on the top, one on the bottom, with a hole that will allow the ones on the top to touch the ones on the bottom. And I'll explain why we do that, halachically. And then, it's amazing by divine providence that we're coming off the day of passing of the 5th Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. We spoke about the Mayon, the rivers that people used to use. Lubavitch was in a village. All of the women and the men, they used the river. The first time we needed to build a mikvah was when we moved to a city called Rostov in southern Russia. And the 5th Rebbe was involved in the building of the mikvah. And he innovated that instead of having a boid on the side, in the good old days, you had just one boid on the side. Right now we have 2 on the side and 1 underneath. He says to make one underneath, boid hashaka. I'll explain to you in a moment what that means. But then he said the words that the boid and the bottom should have kiflei kiflayim of the minimum amount. He used those words. It should be double and more. And they told him, double or more, 700 is the most chamer. Doubling that is 1,400 liters. So they told the Rebbe that they're going to make the boir hatachtoin, the under boir, they're going to make it of 1,500 liters. And he was happy with that. That's what he meant. He didn't mean double to double. He meant more than double. Turned out, we know now that it doesn't have that size. It's a little bit less than that. And they notified him, and he was not happy about that. But it's 100% kosher. Everyone used it. Okay, so we are doing mamish what the Rebbe Rashab wanted. We put the boir hatacht in 1,500 liters. The water is going to have hamshacha into all 3. There's going to be hamshacha before it enters the zriya, hamshacha before it enters the hashaka, before it enters the boir hatachten. And none of it is yet where people are using the mikvah. The mikvah proper is filled from city water. But if we would have wanted, we could have just put a spigot in front of the mikvah. And I'll show you how they are all connected. The first thing we do is, this is universal, is that the city water, by all mikvahs, they go into the boir zriya, into the planting boir. It's called the boir of planting. Why is it called planting? Because the city waters is planted in that mikvah. What does planting mean? So we have 1,000 liters. We have the minimum amount of rainwater. When you add water, you're not adding thousands of liters at a time. You're opening up a faucet. The waters that are entering halachically become nullified in that which is, according to everyone's opinion, aside of the Ravid, just to know the name. If you want, you can add waters ad infinitum, even though, biologically, the original waters at some point will be used up, because the waters are going into the Zriya, and it's overflowing into where the ladies enter. So you're putting rainwaters, then you're putting city water, and it's going into that same reservoir that can only hold 1,000 liters. So when you're putting it in, water is entering, and it's overflowing into where the woman will enter. By the letter of the law, all of that water is called rainwater. Even though it's coming from the city, no, the city water went into the already koshered mikvah. Once you have a kosher mikvah, when the water goes in, it enters, it becomes part of it. It becomes legally like it. So that in itself could have been enough. There was one opinion that said that's not good. That if you have the majority of rainwaters, you're good. The moment you don't have the majority of rainwaters, you're not good. But we still do that, because that's the way most people did it. Boir Zriya. You plant the city waters in that boir. In addition to that, you have, like I mentioned, on the side, you'll see, you have a reservoir that can hold 2,000 liters that we will divide into half, top, bottom. 1,000 on the top, 1,000 on the bottom. No one is going to add city waters into that. That is 2,000 liters of rainwater. From that side boir, we're going to create a hole that when we want, we'll put a stopper in. When we want, we'll take the stopper out. Obviously, if you have a water reservoir and you have a hole, the water is going to go out. But hold on, we're going to plug it. But when the water in the ladies' mikvah, what we call the ladies' mikvah, will be full, the water is going to go above the area of that hole. When you unplug it, waters are not going to just flow in there because there's counter pressure. But what happens is that the waters of where the ladies will enter, it's touching, hashaka means it's kissing, it's touching the boir hashaka, which is rainwater. No water is being put in there directly. That's even better. The disadvantage of that is that over time there is some exchange of waters. And again, according to the Ravid, Nasan saw, the Natal saw, at some point it's not good. In almost all mikvahs in the world before Lubavitch, having two side boiras was already the big chumrah. Now, the Rebbe Rashab, when he wanted for that boir hashaka not to be on the side, it should be underneath, he said, why? He said because heat rises. That's the nature of things. The boir into which the ladies go is heated up. The rainwaters are never heated up. So having the hashaka, where the waters touch, having it not side by side, but top bottom, will prevent the mixture from happening as quick as. What we do here in LA, being that many people here are not Chabad people, is that we did everything. So we have two on the side, boir Zriya on the side, that's the boir through which city waters go in and overflows into the ladies' mikvah. Another boir on the side, 2,000 liters. The kissing happens on the top 1,000. You understand? So even if there's a mixture there, Yossi, that's the new chab. These are new things that we're doing. There's going to be a plastic divider. Plastic is not my kabel tumah, it's the best divider. Not rubber, plastic. And in it, there is a hole. So the waters on the top of the boir hashaka are doing hashaka with the waters under the boir hashaka. This in itself gives longevity. This is all to cover the Ravid. And then we're Lubavitch. And the Rebbe Rashab said to do kiflei keflayim. Kiflei keflayim means that the one underneath has 1,500 liters. Amazing. 1,000, 2,000, 1,500. Then everything is plugged up. When we want to clean out, we just clean out empty the mikvah, what you'll call the mikvah. It's not the real mikvah, but it's the mikvah that people go into, and perfectly dried. And then you add water into the boir Zriya. There's never city water is going directly in the mikveh. It goes into that rainwater, and it overflows into the mikveh, and then you unplug it, and now you have hashaka both with the side and with the mikveh underneath. And every time water is leaving the water reservoir to go into the boir zediyah, or and boir hashaka, and into the boir hatachten, there's going to be a hamshacha. And I really want to commend, these are nuances that again, the type of cement that they used for everything was one level of cement. And we want, again, to cover all of these opinions that the hamshacha, it's going to look like cement. You'll see what I'm talking about. By the men's mikveh, you can see it better. Concrete. Cement is a part of concrete. It's a different density because we want it to be closer to the earth. I want to add just one thing. There are many little nuances, but I want to add like this. I'm going now to the ladies' mikvah. It's not unique to here, but it's good to know what you're looking at. A woman has to be comfortable before she goes under the water. Many women are very comfortable swimming, going under the water. Many people might not be that comfortable. So if you read the details, there is an ideal height for a woman to be standing in the waters. Not every woman has the same height, so it's not uncommon for mikvahs to have steps. But there is a Mishnah that speaks about waters that are flowing on an incline hill called a katafris. And there's a question whether a woman or a man can go into those waters. It's not gathered yet. It's on an incline and it's moving. And the rule is that if those waters are doing hashaka, now we got the word hashaka means to touch. If at the bottom of the hill the waters are stationary somewhere, gravity, it landed somewhere. So then if you go into the katafris, if it's doing hashaka with the gathered waters, then you're good. If the katafris itself has 40 saw of rainwater. We made a step over here. So there is one opinion. This is the Divrei Chaim. I mean, these are just one of. He held that if a woman is going to go to the mikvah on a step might be a katafris. It's hashaka with the rest. It's one body of water. The mikvah is once touching the kosher water, but there has to be 40 saw. So we have one larger step, because if you were to measure the water on the step to the top of the water height, that in itself has 700 liters. I give you an example of all these nuances. It took many people many years to figure all these things out. And then it's a machaya, as we get further in time, everything is becoming more muhudar. So we covered the Divrei Chaim, which is great. I'm very happy about that. I love these things. And we covered the issue of metal, a side of the hamshacha, which is also a beautiful chumrah. Again, our pipes are made out of plastic, even though most of it is not. It's just an opening in the cement itself. And just to conclude with the men's mikvah only has 2 water reservoirs. By the letter of the law, for the type of impurity that the men here are using a mikvah, we don't even need to have rainwaters. We only need for the waters to be gathered. Nevertheless, we want to build a better mikvah, a mikvah that has a higher koyach of removing tumah. We did not make, like by the women, 3 reservoirs aside of the ladies' mikvah. We made one under the other. Now, we have a water reservoir. The water reservoir is contained in a big box, sitting on the ground in the ground story. Again, it's 5,000 liters, or maybe 6,000 liters. On top of that, in the same reservoir, there's going to be a cover. On top of that cover is the lower boyd for the men's mikvah. And then on top of that, and now you're up to the second story, you have the men's mikvah. So the men's mikvah is a triple layer cake. The men's mikvah here is not a boyd under a boyd and a boyd and a boyd. Happens to be the bottom boyd is the water reservoir. These waters won't be touching, but they're sitting one on top of the other. This helped us build the mikvah on the second story. There's nothing wrong building the whole mikvah on the second story, but then you have to build a very strong foundation to hold up all this water. It's mamish, the waters of the men's mikvah is really sitting on the ground. Because we have the reservoir, the boyd hatachten, and then the boyd ha'elyon. By the men, we made a very special hamshacha. Another thing about this hamshacha, first of all, it shouldn't only be three tfachim. We said it should be much more than the 12 inches. But if the hamshacha can turn, it slows the flow of the water, and we want for the water to flow slowly on our hamshachas, and we accomplish that especially by the men's mikvah on purpose, because we only have one boy tacht, and we want it to be it should be gavaldik. We would like to thank Rabbi Pesach Sperling and his son, that pro bono, that came here throughout, which is amazing. And ultimately, the organ in Yerushalayim that's responsible for all of the mikvahs in Yerushalayim, they will be responsible for the mikvah over here, which is gavaldik. But in order for them to agree to that, we had Rabbi Sperling, who was experienced in building mikvahs, who was informing them where we're at. And in the very near future, we're going to have for the first time their main mashgiach come over here. And on occasion, they're going to come check up. My responsibility in the near future is to invite all of the rabbanim of the city. It's a good thing to do that, to show they should see the mikvah. It's a muhudir dika mikvah. It's a beautiful thing to see. And we'll leave it at that right now. And now let's begin. Let's go with the actual tour. Any questions before we do that? Hope I didn't overload information. Okay, let's go. Okay. Now, this is going to be fun. Now we have to get into the building. And